Good afternoon, this is Xfinity Channel on Education. Over the past 14 years, more than 1,000 teachers have trained with Oxbridge TEFL, and more than 1,000 people have actually started a very interesting career in teaching in education. And the starting point was a course, a 120-hour course that was just the beginning of their career. So some of them still continuing the business, and some of them have built very solid careers and enjoying the teaching process, interacting with students and creating fantastic material. So today we're going to talk about proper TEFL training, what are the benefits, and explain from the inside what it is to be TEFL certified, and how a TEFL course is created, prepared, and what the students would expect from it. We're going to talk about it with Wylie and Graeme in Barcelona. We have Ash on the other side as well, and Julio, who is in Madrid. Hi, guys.
Hello.
My name is RadmilaGurkova, so let's get started. In the first place, let's start with a question. If I'm someone that speaks good English, why do I need a TEFL course? Do I need it at all to become a teacher?
Yeah, I mean, I would like, well, maybe not being from Newcastle, but I would like to think that I spoke good English before I did the TEFL course, but that doesn't mean I can teach, right? Yeah. Because you asked me what the grammar was or what I was saying, I wouldn't have a clue, you know? I think I could have told you what a verb was, what a noun was, what an adjective was, and that was me done, you know? So I had no ideas of conditionals, phrasal verbs, all these kind of terms. Yeah. And I know kind of Spanish, etc., they kind of go into the grammar a lot more, right? And when they're learning, and they still like to know the terms, and this is this is that, etc. So yeah, I think you obviously need a qualification to understand. For me, it was mainly the grammar. Obviously, you need the teaching theory and methodologies. All that is very important as well. But for me personally, it was more the grammar side of things that you need to know.
I think a lot of people, when they go, I want a TEFL certificate so I can teach. You need a TEFL certificate so you can learn to become a teacher. Yeah, I think that's the first point. Is like you're going to become a teacher in 4 weeks, or you're going to upskill, because everyone can teach. You know, you've probably taught someone to ride a bike or whatever. Yeah. But you got to upskill that, and if you can speak the English language, it's learning how to teach something that you can do, and the 4 weeks will show you how to do that. It's not just about getting a certificate so you can get a job.
Ash, let me ask you, from your perspective, so Ash is very actively involved in mentoring, and actually one of the most reliable teachers when it comes to sending a new trainee to see how the system works. So can you see a before and an after their training?
Yeah, I think so. One of the start is that they're very nervous. This is all very new system to learn. You can see as the weeks go on, you can see it all start to, and by the end, you see, I think, a lot which yourself first to give.
Okay, and Julio, before enrolling in a TEFL course, or why did you enroll in the first place? So what did you want to learn? What did you expect to learn?
Well, I basically had a mix of expectations. My friend Chris, he's from Yorkshire. He was teaching English in Thailand, so he told me he was getting paid to chat up ladies in Thailand. So that was one point of view, and the second point of view was, I guess it was my own. I mean, stepping in a place I've never been before, and trying to, you know, understand all it would take to do it successfully, because obviously no one wants to fail, and there was a lot of nervousness and fear, but at the same time I thought I could do it at the beginning. And towards the middle of my course, my TEFL course, I actually got a little panic. Graeme can tell you right about it, because
you read his mind, I think. What happened there?
So I wasn't panicking that much, but there was a lot of information to take in, and I was taking it seriously because there's certain factors about teaching that we need to be aware of. And it's just not to get there and know a little grammar and that's it. If you want to be a great teacher, it involves a lot more. So, well, that was what I realized what it was about in the middle of the course. But to answer your question, basically, I had those two opinions basically at the beginning.
Okay, so guys, when we have a new trainee or someone that is thinking of or in two minds whether or not to do the course, do you do you explain to them what are some difficulties of stepping into teaching without the proper training?
Yeah.
What are they? Can we summarize?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the market, you'll see really low-paid jobs, and they're for people without certificates.
Okay.
And you can get into the market of doing conversational classes, but they pay a rate, and it tends to be about €10 an hour, and there's no way you can live on it. When you see the people who are getting paid €25, or they're working in a good established academy, and there are many of them in Spain, they won't take you without a TEFL certificate. They won't even look at you. It's like trying to get a job in Spain without a NIE. It's literally as powerful as that.
They're just not going to look. They're going to look at you.
They want to know you've had and also they want to see that you've done teaching practice as well. I think that's something that misses from some courses. They want to know, okay, you've read the book, you've done the theory, but can you walk the walk?
Yeah. Some of the online ones tend to not have any teaching practice.
That's right.
So you actually mentioned some criteria. When someone has to decide about a specific TEFL course, what should they look in the first place?
For me, a lot of it would be the teaching practice, right? Because you can study as much theory as you want. You can study theory for 10 years, but unless you've sat or stood in front of a class and taught, you're not going to get the experience, And for me, that would be one of the most important thing, to make sure that I was doing the theory, but also I had as much teaching practice to go along with that as possible, which I think is where the TEFL course here is great. Obviously there's plenty of teaching practice that goes along with it.
I think Julio's a great example. Julio, when he did his first week, he was just obviously getting into theory. I think you were doing grammar week first, Julio, I can't remember. But he observed a lot of great teachers and he was like, oh, this looks really easy. These guys are just flowing through this. And then when we started to look at the theory behind what they were actually doing, he was like, this is what they're thinking when they're sitting there looking relaxed. I was like, oh yeah. And that's when he had his little mini, and then by the end of the course, it was second nature for Julio. And I think that's the amount of teaching practice, because you are going to go in there and
definitely
and suck your first couple of times to get the hang of it.
Yeah, and having the feedback as well. Sorry, having feedback from the teacher who was there with me as well was huge. You could sit down after and have a chat and they point out where you went wrong, what you could have done better, etc., etc., etc.
I think it's more important than what we do as instructors. I genuinely think that the time they spend with teachers like Ashley getting actual on-the-job training is the best part.
Yeah. And it was the bit I enjoyed actually. As much as and as nervous as I was at the start, it was the bit that I enjoyed, and it's the bit I learnt the most.
Getting your chops, right? So.
Actually, I wanted to ask Ash because it's kind of. It's tricky to provide feedback that would reflect reality, because especially at first, our trainees need a lot of guidance and constructive criticism at first, but also praise, but also to be reminded of the weaknesses that they have. So what is a good way to provide good feedback, Ash?
Well, I think it's important. Going to give feedback that it should be positive. So to give the good things along, because if you say, well, you do this right, this bad, blah, 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 even if you did a bad job, but if you say, no, it was really good, if you did this, you should maybe do this. It's important because you don't want to ruin yourself and like stress or worry. So I try and a bit of the good and the
And Julio, for instance, were you have you had the experience of being discouraged or, on the contrary, encouraged? And was this in accordance to your own feeling about your performance?
Well, actually, yeah, I've been encouraged at the beginning. Well, to me, to add something what you were talking before, to me, the turning point was teaching practice. That was when I realized I could do it, and that I needed work. I needed to work on my teaching skills, but I knew I could do it. And after that, well, my first student was a great guy, and we had so much fun. And I think I wrote to Graeme as soon as I got home and said, "Hey, man, I'm having a blast." And this guy and I mean, we had a lot of things in common, and then I understood it's about that connection with your student, and that really encouraged me to engage more with my students and to find that common ground, because when I don't find it, or where I can't find it, I leave the class with a bitter feeling, and I really hate it. But when I finish a class that at least in my opinion, I think it was a good class, I'm really happy. I feel so satisfied, and I'm getting like kind of addicted to this feeling of doing I mean, at the same, I mean, you're forced to do it properly if you want to feel that way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you get my idea.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right now I'm just like trying to define my own teaching style, quicker ways to connect with my students, and other things. I do a lot of how do you say that, like some self examination of what I'm doing wrong, of what I could be improving, and I'm on a constant move all the time
Actually, this
to
is
improve myself.
this is very useful. And in this regard, just a reminder for all the teachers to check their stats in the app, because they're quite revealing, and tell you a lot about your performance. So your students are providing some very good details for you to see where you stand. So what your pace is, or how you use the system in terms of grammar activities versus vocabulary activities, fluency activities, etc., etc. So you have direct feedback that we have provided that information for you and it's very useful to check and self-assess yourself. I think all of us should do it.
Yeah. And just going on from what Ash was saying a little bit as well, about giving positive and negative feedback. I think it's always good when giving feedback to give specific examples. So not just say, because I remember when I was getting a bit of feedback, oh, you didn't do this, I was like, you kind of so caught up in the moment. It's like, I can't remember when I didn't do that, So giving giving, you didn't do this and this was when you didn't, giving a specific example, I think always help. And
I was going to say something very similar. I think that one of the good things about Ash, and there are many teachers who do the same thing as Ash, is that there is specific points. There's nothing worse than if you finish a class and someone goes, good job, and you pick from what you thought was good, and you go to the next class and they go, you didn't do so well there, and you're like, hang on a minute, what did I do so well, what didn't?
Yeah.
And the good thing about feedback from people like Ash is this is exactly what you did, this is exactly why it's good, and reinforce that.
If you say you didn't correct much and then give a specific, you didn't correct people instead of person, or you didn't, and give a couple of examples of when, and that's the stuff that
it's golden
that
for
people
your
remember.
development.
Yeah, usually there are 2 or 3 issues that we have to continually work with the trainees on. One is corrections, and the other is grading. Especially native speakers find grading a little bit tricky because, okay. And so let's go back to the format of the course. According to, the British Council is probably the institution that provides guidance for TEFL courses. So according to them, what should a good TEFL course include? A comprehensive TEFL course, what should they include in terms of length and number of input hours and teaching practice and organization? What should it have?
I think if I remember rightly, it's 100 hours plus of theory. They look for, and it seems to have rounded off 120. That seems to be the benchmark that most companies offer. They can be over months. But intensive is better not just for the British Council, but it really looks good to your employer. If you've managed to do 4 weeks intensive teaching, then you're ready to manage the time load. It shows time management skills, you know, and I think that's one of the reasons the 4 week intensives are so good. If I remember rightly, it's 6 hours they recommend of teaching practice.
Yeah.
That's their minimum.
Yeah, that's the minimum.
And in terms of modular stuff, I mean, grammar, yes, but they look more at the teaching of grammar, how you do it, teaching skills. What else do they do wrong? I think
classroom management.
Classroom management,
and theory. About methodology and models.
Yeah.
Okay. So all these elements have to be present, but we all agree that the teaching practice is probably the most useful one.
Yeah.
So how do you know that a trainee in a course is doing fine? What is the information? What information do you need to know? Okay, so these guys are just fine.
Actually, one of the things that gets me, maybe Rob can agree, if at some point during the course they start to realise how difficult this is, it is essentially, it's a level 5 qualification university, and I can't remember what that works out to. It'd be a 2 or 3 year degree slammed into 4 weeks. It should be difficult. You should have a panic at some point. It should be challenging for you. You do lose weekends, and when you see people starting to realize, they're going through this process, and they start, thinking of teachers, they start relating to stuff, and they start telling you, and they give feedback of other teachers they've watched. When I start to see these things, I'm like, they're getting this.
Yeah.
What about you, Rob?
Exactly the same. Yeah.
It's that little. It's when they look challenged that I'm like, good, because you should.
But that's the bit that you want as well. Like if you've got someone who whizzes through it, it's like you haven't done this properly.
Yeah.
It's it needs to be challenging. You need to have a little breakdown once in a while, a panic attack, and but there's character building, right? You wouldn't enjoy it as much at the end if you hadn't had a bit of a.
It's like
meltdown.
It's like a bittersweet, isn't it? You're going through it, and then you get to the end, and you see everyone in their last week, and they're just getting into their flow. And it's the best thing as an instructor, and I'm sure for Ash as well. If you get someone in week 1 and week 4, it feels good, right?
Yeah. One, optimistic. Second week a little less optimistic.
It's a repetition.
Okay, so Julio, from your perspective again, because you are a recent graduate, what idea did you have about this profession before the course? Did you think it was easy, or you imagined it difficult? What was it?
Well, I never thought it was going to be easy, because basically what I can remember of an English teacher when I was learning English was hard work. There was I remember, my previous teacher, he was probably teaching 35 students at the same time, and from different cultures, different places, different behavior, and sometimes when it started to get out of hand, it was, you could see him, putting a lot of effort. Even though he managed to do it, that's like the freshest memory I have of being an English teacher. It's hard work, but it doesn't have to be, okay? If you know how to get involved with your students and to get them engaged, you probably don't have to go through that. But obviously, 35 plus student class is just it must be a nightmare.
Yeah, it is. But do you feel now ready to face any teaching situation, for example?
Well, I don't know what's the worst situation.
Well, I guess 35 kids.
I could think of very awkward situations, but I don't know. It's a way of being diplomatic about things and try to manage them. At the end, we're not only teachers. We're psychologists. We are friends. We are teachers, and we're a bunch of other stuff. So we need to be prepared. That's key to for all, I think. So yes, I'm prepared. I think I'm prepared to deal with most normal situations.
That's
Okay.
That's great. And right now, how much time do you spend preparing for your classes?
About 1 minute.
That's great.
I don't.
That's the best news you can give me. 1 minute is the answer I expected. That's great.
I actually spend a little bit more. And
I really like the first answer. Let's leave it there. That means that we've done something right, providing quality material.
Yeah, I mean, the fact it's so teacher friendly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe we should say that that's not quite common, and teachers prepare much more.
Yeah.
But in our case, our teachers do have that aid, which is the platform with all the lesson plans. Okay, so Rob and Graeme, before actually delivering a TEFL course, we have to work a lot on its content, right? Mm-hmm. So the outcomes, the assessment system, everything matters. So how can you tell us very briefly, how is the course actually born?
We'll talk about when we start with Module 1, Grammar Week, or Hell Week as I like to call it.
Hell Week.
Yeah, it's a great fun for you. I like teaching this week because personally it was very difficult for me when I started as a teacher. Yeah. I found grammar learning
it was the most difficult for me.
Yeah. So from the natives perspective and the likes of Julio, who's a natural teacher, he found the grammar learning difficult like I did. In fact, Julio gave me a quote during our class, which I still use in the TEFL program today, which is, why teach someone grammar rules when they don't understand the grammar rules in their own language? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was golden.
Absolutely.
And that's the second part of Hell Week, is that if you have a real strong understanding of grammar, can you teach without using the terms? And how can you learn the functional stuff? So that's really what we cover in week 1. And there's an exam at the end of it.
The exam, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the exam literally it covers both your knowledge and your ability to teach without necessarily using grammatical terms, right?
Exactly. Absolutely, yeah.
As I see it, basically, that language analysis makes you aware of how your own language works and what difficulties to expect that other learners can have or speakers of other languages can have because the structures are different.
Absolutely.
So if we understand these differences and are able to anticipate sometimes and to explain in plain words how the new language, the L2, works, then we're going to make it much easier for our students. So grammar is there not to, it's the big issue, grammar, but it's there just to make you aware of how language works. That's all. Yeah. The main benefit is in the teaching practice. We all agree about that. But the big issue seems to be the grammar. Were you scared about the grammar before enrolling in the course? Yes.
I mean, because that was that was the thing that I didn't have any idea of, and being natives, we just don't learn that. Yep. So it's like, that was the one that I actually quite like it now, but I remember at the time kind of being horrified by all these info and terms and all that, and it was like, totally. But no, I actually quite like it now, like I said. So
how did you find this is the thing for me why I like teaching practice so much, and I've done 2 courses. When I did the first one, I left my grammar teaching practice till the very end of the course because it scared the Jesus out of me. But then when I went to teach it, I was really good at it. And why? If I don't understand grammar that well, why am I good at teaching it? And that was the first time I realised that you can teach grammar in its form and its use. You don't have to be a grammarian and know everything. You need to know it for the class, but you don't need to have it stored in you like a dictionary. Did you find it the same? Like the first time you taught grammar, you're like, oh, hang on.
Yeah. I actually was like, I've actually enjoyed this, and I don't know what I'm kind of all right at it, but I was a bit worried, I guess, when I started that I've got to have every single grammar term in my head, and I was a bit nervous about teaching the grammar activities because what if a student asks me a question and I don't know the answer and blah 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 blah, and all them things go through your mind, but actually, and like I said, and I get the most satisfaction now, I guess, as a teacher when my students get the grammar. Like if we've covered, I don't know, a condition or something and we worked on it, then boom, they get it. Then that's where you get had a good amount of job satisfaction rather than
Absolutely.
just, you know, maybe some of the other types of activities that we got.
Mm-hmm. Guys, what do you do if, for instance, you are with a trainee and you see that the class is not going so well or as well as expected, and it's kind of not a disaster, but the students are struggling, the teacher is not getting the point across?
I think it's important to jump in.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone who's had a TEFL in their class, you may think, oh, if I do this, it's gonna, you know, knock their confidence or whatever. But I think there's a way you can do it. You know, just kind of get in the class, just take over and help them. You know, and they'll learn from that experience as well. They'll be like, I was trying for 10 minutes to explain the first condition, I couldn't do it. The teacher jumped in and got a technique, and then you've just picked something up, you know, and then they're going to apply that technique in their next class. So this clearly works with students, so this is what I'm going to do in my next class. So I think you don't have to be, we shouldn't be scared to jump in.
We have to team up with the training
just
absolutely. Help them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the teachers have to be very active and monitoring the class actively, analyzing every single movement. Okay. And sorry, Ash.
I don't think it depends on what the mistake is or what the problem is. So in practice, how they react, improvise. Sometimes I like to step back. I think it's good practice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is in practice. In fact, right after the course, the teachers are ready, but they continue perfecting and evolving as teachers after some months of practice to their full capacity. Okay, and let's talk a little bit about something that doesn't have to do so much with teaching and teaching techniques, but dress code, for instance. What is the dress code? Because it's again a question that we're frequently asked. What should the dress code of the English teacher be?
He says wearing a t-shirt.
Come to you, Graeme.
Yeah, thanks for that. I guess it's you have to evaluate where you're going.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going into a law firm, you ain't going in there with beach shorts and flip flops.
Yeah.
You know, but on the same hand, if I'm going into a cool bar or whatever, I'm not going to wear a suit. Yeah. So I guess that's it. And you know, you gotta look at that and play it out. You want to be comfortable and be able to go around. Sorry.
No.
I was just about to say, it would be fair if I was a student and I was working with Ash, for example, you know, and I looked at where I'm going. I'm sure once you start communicating with Ash should be the first to be like, look, we're going to an office. Don't turn up in flip flops and board shorts, or I'm going to leave you at the door.
Yeah.
Know you're on.
I'd say I think you just got to know where you're going. Like, you know, I wouldn't want to turn up even if I could in kind of shorts and flip flops anyway. I think you know, to get yourself into the work mode. If I've just strolled off the beach in shorts and flip flops, I'm just not going to be in work mode at all. You know, so I think
dress the part, be the part, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and do you guys have any funny anecdotes from your experience as trainers, or even from your time as trainees?
I think Ash said you had one before, right?
Yeah, I have one example actually. It was quite funny. There was a new TEFL. It was her first here in Barcelona, and we were going to an office. Third or fourth day, I mean, with this student, this guy. He was very, very handsome, very extremely happy. He was like George. And the student, she was very so he was from South America, and we were talking about things from back home. And she was very, very involved, like with it, like listening. I thought that was very, very funny. The sexual tension you could have. I always remember this. Example was very, very funny. I felt like the class go at it themselves.
You were third wheeling, mate.
Exactly. I was third wheeling. I thought like, I'll leave. So I always remember this was very, very achieving.
Julio, how about you?
Well, I can't think of anything like that, but like Ash's experience. But just a normal, laugh at the class, and actually I've not had anything like out of the regular, basically.
Fair enough.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We'll give you some time. We'll ask you some weeks from now. And you guys?
I have one with Paul Bryant when we were doing the course in Malaga, and it was an accidental but very hilarious moment when he was teaching a student pronunciation, and the student was really struggling with sheet and inversions, and I was in the next room, and our microphones kept looping, and I went to type again for him to repeat the bit before, and he kept on getting the student to replace this, and I got hysterics. The student got into hysterics, but it was looping through the laughter because we were too close.
Yeah.
That was one of my funniest moments in a TEFL.
Yeah, mine was pretty much the same. Like the TEFL and the students, whatever, getting the wrong end of the stick, and like some miscommunication going on along the way, and maybe especially if it's kind of to do with like a false friend or something like that, and maybe the TEFL has no kind of Spanish or has and there's this kind of miscommunication, and I'm in the middle kind of laughing, and obviously everyone tends to be stuff with like that with a mispronunciation or with a false friend, and so yeah. It's always fun.
Right. Rob, do we have any questions?
We got one, yeah. It's just quickly about what are the comparative merits of all the different TEFL courses, so like TEFL, CELTA, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm. You're looking at me because I did the CELTA.
Well, you're the best one to speak.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think with Trinity College and then with Cambridge, if I remember rightly, the Trinity one is a bit more theory-based. They go heavy into their theory. The Cambridge, because they're the governing body behind the CEFR, they focus a lot on examination teaching, and it does become a core part of their course. And both courses limit themselves at 6 hours of teaching practice. And it is, or from my experience, I know the courses vary, but it tends to be you have the same group for the whole 2 weeks. So you do get the opportunity to bond with your group, but I guess with something like our course, you have a much more mixed bag, and you will see far more examples of teaching. When I went to do my course, there was not a single teacher I was watching who I thought taught like I would. But when I started doing the Oxbridge one, there was quite a few that I was like, I'm going to teach like that. So I guess that's the difference is all our course in the Trinity, they're all 120 hours. They're all sitting that benchmark. I guess we do the same, but we're a little bit more in the teaching practice. To answer that question.
Because again, referring to the British Council, they have some guidance that all of us try to interpret in the best possible way. Give the theory, of course, but in our case, without practice, we understand that teaching is just impossible. Therefore, the more teaching practice the students get, the better.
I think because the end goal is really when we're doing the TEFL, we're really hoping that our best students stick with us and work with us. So the focus, I guess, the TEFL and the CELTA is to get the best certificate you can. For us, we're looking to get the best teachers. We want you to become a great teacher at the end of it, not necessarily just get a certificate, because we're hoping you're going to work with us. So the focus is on teaching practice, right?
I want to take the chance to give credit to one of the teachers that put a lot of effort in creating a very high-level, high-standard TEFL course. Her name is Ana Garza. She's no longer with us, but she was the one to set the base of, to structure the course and to set the basis for what we have now.
Brilliant.
Obviously, the course has evolved, but I think that we have to mention her now that we're talking about our course. So thank you, Anna, if you watch this at some point. Any other?
No, that's basically it. No, I mean some of the frequently questions that we get as well, right?
Let's talk about the price
of the course and the guaranteed jobs, etc., etc.
Okay. So the price of the course is something that TEFL courses are related to expensive knowledge. Usually they're expensive. In our case, we really invest in our TEFL course. We really want to make it easy for the trainees because it's not in the first place, it's not our main source of income. Other TEFL courses live just on that, on their course, and does that. For us, the TEFL course is just the beginning of a career of a teacher. Therefore, it has to be affordable. It has to be very good at a high standard. And what we promise about the job position, in 99% of the cases, it is a reality. I say 99% of the cases because maybe there are people that don't commit so much and don't make the effort of even finishing, but these are really, really rare cases. The rest of the guys, especially when we see a committed person, someone that performs well, we are the first interested in collaborating with that teacher. So for us, the TEFL course is all the people are the best asset that we can have and work with them in the future. That explains our policy towards the price and then the working conditions and the working options for the teachers. Okay, so if we have no more questions, I think
that's all.
That's all. So next week we have we're going to talk about America, right?
Yeah. Well, we finished. Well, I'm not going to talk about America. I'm going to ask them questions.
Yeah.
Well, we did the Celtic connections, and then we're now going to the reason why we all went there in the first place. I mean, after the famines and whatnot, you English guys, and then the Highland clearances and whatnot. So we're going to look at the influence. I thought it was a nice connection. We're going to go to America next and see all the influences they have from the east and west coast. We've got some teachers from those areas. There's loads of American idioms, all those things. We're going to try and get some background on them. Should be really interesting.
We just got to let it go, mate.
Amazing. Many thanks, guys. We'll be back on next Friday at 12 sharp. Thank you.
Cheers.
All.
Thank
Bye.
you.
All right, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Have a nice weekend.
You too.